Picture this, a 24-year-old college student called Muthini joins the Illuminati online. He then convinces his 46-year-old friend Kavivya that he can help him join the cult. And tempted by the promise of riches, Kavivya follows along. But before Kavivya completes his indoctrination into the cult, Muthini tells him there's one final step, a human sacrifice. This leads to the brutal murder of Father Michael Kyengo Maingi, a priest who was not only Muthini's mentor and benefactor, but as Muthini later claimed, someone who had coerced him into intimate acts. Welcome to Silent Shadows. As always, if you appreciate our true crime storytelling, support our work by liking and subscribing. Together we uncover compelling tales of crimes and mysteries in Kenya and beyond, presenting well-balanced narratives that respect the victims and their loved ones. Born on 15th October 1978 in Machakos County, Father Michael Kyengo began his journey to priesthood in August of 2001 when he joined Christ the King Major Seminary in Nyeri. After completing his studies in 2009, he gained pastoral experience as a seminarian first at Emali Parish and later at Mbuvo Parish. 3 years later, on 4th February 2012, he was finally ordained as a deacon and joined Tata Catholic Parish in Machakos County, where he served as a deputy parish priest until his death in 2019. Father Michael often conducted Mass not only at Tata Catholic Church, but also in nearby churches. It was during one of these services at Mbingoni Catholic Church in 2017 that he first encountered a young man named Michael Muthini Mutunga. The two later exchanged phone numbers during a youth seminar overseen by Father Michael. At the time, Muthini was on school holiday, but they remained in touch via phone calls and texts, even after he returned to Embu, where he was pursuing a diploma in early childhood education. It was from these phone exchanges that Father Michael recognized that Muthini came from a struggling background and took it upon himself to support him financially, covering his school fees and providing for his other basic needs. Over time, Muthini and Father Michael grew very close, and Muthini regarded him as both a mentor and an older brother. With the stipend he received from Father Michael, Muthini was able to live a comfortable life. Yet he wanted more. He wanted it all, no matter the cost. His first move to making more money and making it fast saw Muthini in 2018 submit his 7th online application to join the Illuminati, a cult he claimed his friends had introduced him to. Yes, the Illuminati, and yes, he had already tried 6 times before to join the cult and had been rejected each time. In his 7th application, which investigators later recovered, Muthini described himself as a pagan from Mbeere South, Embu County. In a section of the application that asked him why he wanted to join the cult, Muthini wrote, "I fully have the potential to join Illuminati so as to become financially stable and help the community eradicate poverty and shine in the society." The application form also included more details about the cult, as well as the terms and conditions of joining. One of the sections stated, "Our requests are simple, as you will soon find out, and therefore may be hard to comprehend, but disloyalty is not tolerated. In return for your loyalty, you are presented with a limitless life of wealth and opportunities in plenty." After submitting his 7th application, Muthini was finally accepted into the cult. We believe it's important to highlight that it is difficult to verify whether the Illuminati group Muthini joined was indeed a cult. The Join Illuminati for Quick Riches scam has been rampant on the internet for years, with a simple Google search for Join Illuminati yielding countless websites claiming to be part of the organization. In fact, when we searched for the terms and conditions from Muthini's application form that we read earlier, we found an exact match on a website called scammer.info. On the website, this text appears in an email frequently used by scammers to lure people into fake Illuminati recruitment schemes. So could Muthini have fallen for an online Join Illuminati scam? Yes, the chances are very high. After joining the Illuminati, a few months later in early 2019, Muthini met one Kavivya Mwangangi in Gategi Shopping Center, Embu County. They met at a hotel where Kavivya worked as a cook and Muthini would frequently eat there. Kavivya says he was intrigued by Muthini, who he thought had money. After the two got acquainted, Kavivya inquired from Muthini where he got his money from, and Muthini told him he was a member of the Illuminati cult. Kavivya was very interested in joining the cult and make some quick money, and Muthini told him that he needed to pay a subscription fee of 30,000 Kenyan shillings in installments of either 2,666 Kenyan shillings or 3,666 Kenyan shillings until the payments were completed. And Kavivya started paying the installments to Muthini, which begs the question, why was he making the payments to Muthini, yet Muthini was not the cult leader, and there was an online application one had to go through to join the cult? It honestly seems like Muthini was scamming Kavivya. As proof of the payments he made to Muthini, Kavivya carefully recorded each transaction in a small notebook. This notebook was later recovered by the police from his house when he was arrested. In August of 2019, about 2 months before Father Michael was murdered, Muthini told Kavivya that they needed to make a human sacrifice because one of the other cult members had failed to comply with the cult's demands. Again, this raises an important question. Why were Kavivya and Muthini the ones responsible for making the sacrifice for another cult member's mistakes? Shouldn't the cult member who failed to comply have been responsible for the sacrifice instead? Well, in preparation for the sacrifice, Muthini instructed Kavivya to buy a 90 kg sack, a polythene bag, and ropes. Kavivya, without any hesitation, went to the local agrovet and purchased a sack for 200 Kenyan shillings and ropes. The sack, which later became a key piece of evidence in court, was very distinct. It was white with a plastic lining and the words Agroset sack printed on it. After Kavivya got the sack and ropes, Muthini went quiet about the human sacrifice. It wasn't until 2 months later, in October, that Father Michael would turn out to be the person Muthini intended to kill. In October of 2019, Father Michael Kyengo Maingi took a month-long leave from his priestly duties, and he used this time to rest and spend quality time with his mother and other family members at his parents' home in Tala, Kangundo. While at home, he also oversaw the construction of a perimeter fence, a project he had hired a worker by the name Wambua to complete. About a week into his leave, on Tuesday, 8th October 2019, at around 5:30 p.m., Father Michael left his parents' home. He told his mother, Juliana Wayua Maingi, that he was going to meet a friend. He drove off in his dark blue Toyota Axio, but he wasn't alone. He had given a lift to Wambua, the worker he had hired for the fence construction. While on the road, Wambua noticed that the priest was on the phone constantly with someone, telling them he would be arriving at 8:30 p.m. When they reached Kiowa Market, Father Michael dropped Wambua off and then continued on his way. His next stop was Masinga Resort, where he had supper and spent some quiet moments in meditation. After finishing his meal at the resort, Father Michael got back into his car and drove to Muthini's house at Gategi Shopping Center. Before the priest arrived, Muthini called Kavivya, who also lived in Gategi, letting him know that the special guest, a coded term for the human sacrifice, was on the way. To further prepare for the gruesome act, Muthini went to a friend's house around 8 p.m. to borrow a spade, claiming he needed it for excavating sand. Later that evening, he called Kavivya again, this time using a different number, informing him that the guest had arrived and instructing him to go to his house later. What exactly transpired when Father Michael arrived at Muthini's house remains unknown. However, we do know that Kavivya got to Muthini's house at 9 p.m. with the sack and ropes he had bought back in August, and he stood outside for about 30 minutes. At 9:30 p.m., Kavivya says Muthini pulled into the compound with a dark blue Toyota Axio. He parked the car close to his house, entered the house, and emerged moments later with Father Michael. The priest was only wearing his undergarment with his hands tied to his front. What stands out to us is that Kavivya never mentioned the priest's mouth had been gagged. So why didn't Father Michael scream for help or try running? As you'll see later, there is strong evidence showing that Father Michael had been drugged and was in a state of confusion. Muthini put the priest in the boot of the car, and together with Kavivya, they drove to Mashamba River in Makema, Embu County. On the way there, Kavivya recalls that Muthini stopped the car and asked Father Michael, who was still in the boot, for his M-Pesa PIN. Muthini then transferred 1,500 Kenyan shillings to Kavivya. After completing the transfer, they continued driving toward Mashamba River. When they got there, they removed Father Michael from the boot and led him toward a dried-up riverbank. Desperate, the priest pleaded for his life, offering to give them anything they wanted. Seizing the moment, Muthini demanded his online banking login details. Muthini then instructed Kavivya to tie Father Michael's hands and legs behind his back with a rope. Once done, Muthini then ordered Kavivya to slit Father Michael's throat as a sacrifice. Kavivya complied, but in the process, blood splattered onto the yellow shirt he was wearing. Consequently, he removed the shirt and buried it in a shallow grave along with Father Michael's remains, which they had placed inside the white sack. Muthini then cleaned the murder weapon, which was a large knife, before placing it and the spade in the car. They drove back to Gategi, and they got there past midnight. Muthini dropped Kavivya off at his house before heading to his place, where he disposed of the murder weapon by throwing it into a pit latrine. Afterward, he drove to Mwea town, where he withdrew 69,000 Kenyan shillings from Father Michael's M-Pesa account. In an attempt to cover his tracks, Muthini also registered a new SIM card using an ID which the police later established he had stolen from a woman in Kirinyaga, which was further evidence that the murder was premeditated. Using the newly registered line, Muthini transferred 280,000 Kenyan shillings from Father Michael's M-Pesa account. He then proceeded to Embu town, where he hired a driver, one Solomon Mutava, to take him to Kilifi in the priest's car. Muthini avoided driving himself to Kilifi as he did not have a valid driving license, and he wanted to minimize the risk of getting into trouble with the traffic officers. Muthini's plan was clear. He intended to start a new life in Kilifi using the money stolen from Father Michael. They got to Kilifi on Thursday, 10th October 2019. Muthini paid Mutava 3,000 Kenyan shillings for driving him, and then they parted ways. Muthini then went to a bank in Kilifi to deposit money into his bank account before heading to a local garage where he paid a mechanic 18,000 Kenyan shillings to repaint Father Michael's car from dark blue to white. He also spent 60,000 Kenyan shillings on household items to furnish his newly rented house in Kilifi. That same day, Father Michael's mother, Juliana, worried about his whereabouts, repeatedly tried calling him. After several unanswered calls, someone finally picked up and addressed her as Mom, pretending to be her son. The person assured her that he, Father Michael, had been sent on official priest duty and would return after 2 weeks. However, Juliana was suspicious that the person who picked her son's phone was not him, and her instincts were correct. The person answering the call was later identified by the police as Muthini. This unusual phone call, in addition to the fact that concerned family members and friends had searched for Father Michael at his workplace, favorite hanging out spots, and within the neighborhood, but had found no trace of him, led to his brother Benson Mutiso to report his disappearance the following day, Friday, 11th October 2019. When the missing persons report reached the DCI's desk, the detectives immediately began investigating Father Michael's disappearance. They first tracked his car's movements using cameras along the roads and discovered it being driven towards Mombasa on Thursday, 10th October 2019. They also obtained Father Michael's phone logs from Safaricom, which helped them establish Muthini was the last person Father Michael called before he went missing, and that his phone had made multiple large transactions to Muthini in a very short period of time. Additionally, given that these money transfers occurred across different locations, including Embu County, Kirinyaga County, and Kilifi County, indicated to investigators Muthini knew where the priest was. Therefore, he became the prime suspect in the ongoing investigation. To prevent any more money withdrawals from Father Michael's accounts, the police froze his bank account and his M-Pesa. But by the time they were doing so, Muthini had already transferred to himself 700,000 Kenyan shillings, approximately $5,400, with his gravy train having been cut off. On Tuesday, 15th October 2019, Muthini attempted to drive to Nairobi under the cover of night. He was speeding along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway when he was ordered to stop by the police. Muthini ignored the police orders, prompting the officers to deflate one of the car's tires. Muthini eventually stopped and tried to flee on foot, but he was arrested. Together with the car, Muthini was escorted to the DCI headquarters in Nairobi. When the investigators searched the car, they found Father Michael's mobile phone, his debit card, approximately 50,000 Kenyan shillings in cash, and other personal items belonging to the priest, which further linked Muthini to Father Michael's disappearance. Muthini was interrogated by the detectives, and realizing the gig was up, he confessed to them that he and Kavivya had killed Father Michael. On the evening of the same day he was arrested, Tuesday, 15th October 2019, Muthini took the police to their location where they had buried the priest, on a dry riverbed in Mashamba River, Makema, Embu County. The police secured the site, and the following day, Wednesday, 16th October 2019, the forensic team arrived to retrieve Father Michael's remains and process the scene. Muthini then led the detectives to his house in Gategi, where the police recovered a spade, blood-stained clothes, and the murder weapon, which Muthini had thrown in the pit latrine. Muthini then led them to Kavivya's house, but he wasn't there. Lastly, he later took the police to his newly rented house in Mnarani, Kilifi, where they recovered more evidence, including receipts for the large purchases he had made. The police later arrested 2 other suspects in the priest's murder, Mutava the taxi driver and Kavivya. Mutava was arrested on Thursday, 17th October 2019, and Kavivya a week later, on Thursday, 24th October 2019. Kavivya was arrested in his house in Embu County, and during the arrest, police recovered blood-stained clothes, his mobile phone and SIM cards, and a notebook bearing names and phone numbers of 86 people that he alleged were also members of the Illuminati cult. After Father Michael's remains were recovered, they were taken to Montezuma Mona Lisa Funeral Home in Machakos County for an autopsy and DNA identification, given the severe decomposition of the body. The autopsy report confirmed Father Michael's cause of death as a deep wound on the neck, inflicted with a sharp object. However, the pathologist found it unusual that Father Michael, a well-built man, had no defensive wounds. This led to the pathologist to order a toxicology report, which was conducted by the government chemist. The toxicology report revealed that the priest had ingested food laced with a high dosage of 2 drugs, hydantoin and hydroxyphenyldione. When combined in high doses, these drugs can cause confusion and even lead to a coma or death. The government chemist's findings confirmed that Father Michael had been drugged, which explained why he did not fight back, tried to run, scream, and willingly gave his online banking and M-Pesa pins. The death of Father Michael Kyengo Maingi brought immense grief, as he was the sole provider for his mother, 3 brothers who suffered from Down syndrome, and his foster son, whom he was supporting financially. He was laid to rest on Monday, 18th November 2019 at Katoloni, Machakos County. As the priest was buried, the case against his killers was ongoing, though it would take many unexpected twists that would be nothing short of mind-blowing. On Monday, 16th October 2019, almost a month before Father Michael Kyengo was buried, Mutava, Kavivya, and Muthini all pleaded not guilty to the murder charges at the Embu High Court. The judge then ruled that they could be released on a bond of 300,000 Kenyan shillings. Shockingly, after being released on bond, Muthini went into hiding and failed to appear for any of his court hearings. This led the court to issue a warrant for his arrest. Muthini managed to evade the police for an entire year, not for a month or two, but for 12 months. He was finally arrested again on Thursday, 10th June 2021 in Nairobi. 4 months later, on Thursday, 21st October 2021, Muthini pleaded guilty to killing 43-year-old Father Michael Kyengo Maingi. In his admission of guilt, Muthini made a very shocking revelation at the Embu High Court, saying he killed a priest in self-defense after the priest had forced him into an unconsensual act of intimate nature and infected him with HIV in the process. Muthini told the court that their relationship started off as platonic in 2017 when the priest offered to help with his school fees and upkeep. The priest frequently called and texted Muthini, but things took a turn when the priest began calling him affectionate terms like dear and sweetheart, which confused Muthini, who viewed Father Michael as his older brother. In court, Muthini further described an incident in which the priest once visited him in Gategi and insisted on staying overnight, claiming it was too late for him to drive back to Machakos. After dinner, Muthini claims he went outside to clean the bathroom for the priest to take a shower, at which point Father Michael called him to come back inside the house. The priest allegedly prepared 2 glasses of juice. Muthini drank from one of the glasses and he started feeling dizzy and he passed out. Muthini says he woke up at around 3:30 a.m. experiencing pain down there, and he found the priest sitting next to him smiling and without clothes. Muthini went on to tell the court that he confronted the priest, demanding to know what had happened, but the priest allegedly told him that he had every right to act as he had done, since Muthini could not repay the money he had spent on him. Muthini said afterward the priest apologized and told him not to report the incident to the church, as it would cost him his job and bring him shame. Father Michael then left money on the table for Muthini to buy medicine to ease the pain. Muthini continued his testimony by claiming that on the night he killed Father Michael, the priest who was drunk visited him and made advances toward him. When Muthini resisted, an altercation ensued, during which he fell near a large knife. In the heat of the struggle, Muthini picked up the knife and slit Father Michael's throat. After this shocking revelation, Muthini pleaded with the court for mercy, claiming that he was ready to reform. We'd love to pause here and say, no evidence was presented in court to verify Muthini's claims. On Thursday, 11th November 2021, Muthini Mutunga was sentenced to 30 years in prison. In her ruling, Judge Lucy Njuguna stated there was not any evidence to back his abuse claims, and even if he had been abused, he should have pursued legal channels rather than resorting to murder. Furthermore, the court observed that Muthini was not remorseful and had continued to benefit from Father Michael's material possessions, for example his car and his money, even after his death. As for the other 2 accused individuals, taxi driver Solomon Mutava, who had driven Muthini to Kilifi, was cleared of all charges due to lack of evidence linking him to the murder. He had initially been set to testify as a prosecution's witness against Muthini, but this became unnecessary after Muthini pleaded guilty. For Muthini's accomplice, Kavivya, here are the key things to know about his case. After his arrest, he had confessed to the DCI on Friday, 25th October 2019, to being recruited by Muthini to the Illuminati cult and killing the priest following Muthini's instructions. But the confession could not be admitted as evidence to the trial since there wasn't any third party present during the confession. It was only Kavivya and the detectives. There was still overwhelming evidence against Kavivya, including blood-stained clothes recovered from his house and the M-Pesa transaction of 1,500 Kenyan shillings from Father Michael's phone. Also, according to the cell tower data, the police were able to prove that Kavivya was at the Mashamba River the night of the murder. His phone records also showed he communicated frequently with Michael Muthini Mutunga on the night of the murder. Another key piece of damning evidence was the yellow bloody shirt he left in the shallow grave where the priest's body was recovered. On Thursday, 19th December 2024, Kavivya was sentenced to 30 years in prison for the murder of Father Michael Kyengo by Judge Lucy Njuguna at the Embu High Court. It is sad that Kavivya got into all this for money, and the only money he got out of it was 1,500 Kenyan shillings. But it also highlights how Muthini was a master manipulator. As for the motive behind the murder, according to the trial proceedings, the investigators believed that financial gain was the reason Muthini and Kavivya killed Father Michael. We extend our heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Father Michael Kyengo Maingi. May his soul continue to rest in eternal peace. Thank you for joining us today. If you appreciated this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be notified when the next video is up. Until then, please take care, stay safe, and always, always trust your gut.